The latest riots have a variety of reasons, as conflict researcher Katy Hayward says. According to sociologist Katy Hayward, the current situation in Northern Ireland is characterized by enormous uncertainty. The uncertainty is legal, political, economic, and social, just on every front. And that has a lot to do with Brexit. However, the latest riots have a variety of reasons, as the conflict researcher from Queen's University Belfast explains in an interview with several media. We know Northern Ireland is a fragile place, and every year there are serious incidents that show us that this is not a normal place with normal politics, she says. The UK's exit from the EU not only changed the framework, it almost removed it. And she says this fragile balance was possible because we knew that Great Britain and Ireland would continue to move in the same direction, explains the expert. If the UK and the Republic of Ireland are in the same legal framework, in the same political and economic union, whatever their differences, that is really useful for Northern Ireland, which is so influenced by tensions in Britain-Ireland relations. Outside this framework, however, not only things feel more insecure, there's also a greater sense of vulnerability among people about how the peace process could be managed in the longer term. And she says, you get the feeling that a lot it is at stake. Not lost yet, but not impossible. Nor should the importance of the UK-European Union relationship be underestimated for the province, says Hayward. Because the impression that it is now a critical moment for Northern Ireland and a critical point for unionism has also been exacerbated by the bitterness in the UK-EU relationship and the lack of trust. The sociologist describes the causes of the latest riots, in which, according to media reports, almost 90 police officers were injured, as complex. She speaks of a terrible combination of things. It could always have been that the police's actions against a criminal gang, for example, could have led to very local riots, says the expert. In this case, however, the special wider political environment is added, in which institutions of law and order, well, whether it's the Northern Irish government or the British government or the police, are in some ways viewed as untrustworthy or defective, and that undermines the efforts of those trying to advocate peaceful demonstrations. Because then people could be mobilized by the feeling that the union with Great Britain was in danger. First Minister Arlene Foster from the Unionist Party DUP had asked the Northern Irish Police President to resign at the end of March after it had been decided not to take action against members of the nationalist party Sinn Féin, who attended a funeral of a former IRA member last year, and thus possibly corona rules have been disregarded. Unionist leaders like Foster have said the police chief doesn't have the support of their communities, which is pretty negative, says Hayward. Because even if they had tried to differentiate between the police and the police chief, this was a very strong statement of a lack of confidence in the police leadership. In addition, criminal organizations, some of which have ties to pro-British loyalists, are taking advantage of the uncertain political situation to stir up unrest. And Hayward said, and then there's the larger context, the feeling that the unionists are under a lot of pressure, and that it is necessary now to draw a line and to express as clearly as possible the unionist concerns about the Northern Ireland Protocol, according to which the province, unlike the rest of the UK, continues to apply, has provisions that continue to apply of the EU internal market and the customs union, which leads to a goods border in the Irish Sea. And once again, it's just a goods border, nothing else. What made the atmosphere particularly nerve-wracking was the feeling that there are changes on every front and people don't really know where that is going, says Hayward. Nationalists in general don't want Brexit, but they believe it makes a unified Ireland more likely, and I agree there, and that is some consolation for them in some ways. While loyalists and unionists, even if they wanted Brexit, think the current situation is weakening the UK union rather than strengthening. When asked why very young people were apparently also involved in the latest riots, some of those arrested were not older than 13 or 14 years old. The sociologist says the question is more complex. Why shouldn't they do it? After all, the riots also indicated social problems. A possible criminal record, about which Foster had warned the youngsters, may not cause some who may not have much hope for their future or their lives. Perhaps they're not too worried. Many of the affected areas suffered particularly badly during the Northern Ireland conflict, and many areas that were most socially disadvantaged during the Troubles are still the most socially disadvantaged today. This is partly due to the conflict, but partly also a vicious circle, according to the expert. From her point of view, more structural and cultural change would be necessary. The same problems were also relevant in impoverished Republican areas, where there was concern about Republican dissidents. They mirror each other in a way that's really sad, she says. It's of course a good thing to have a joint Northern Irish government with power sharing between the two sides. But because politics is so focused on unionists and nationalists, the persistent problems, which are not orange or green, but social problems, economic problems, are never addressed, or not properly addressed, criticized Hayward. And that's why these paramilitary groups continue to influence these poorest communities. And I picked that, although it's just one source, it's just Hayward, but it really shows that the thing is far more complex. And it shows that Brexit plays a part in it, even if it's denied a lot in comments when I make videos about Northern Ireland. But in this case, you see the mixture of all reasons. And Brexit is one of those reasons. Not the only one, but it fired up the situation. And I hope I could give those who are not from Ireland or Northern Ireland, but especially those from more than 120 countries around the world, a bit clearer picture of the complexity of the situation. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.